Cable check. Cable check. Mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Zoom test. Cable test. Mic check.
places?
Getting in there, getting in there. That's why we need to be running.
Yeah, no, hell no. But thank you.
I almost got you.
Yeah, you did.
Were almost right
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Like, yeah, no.
I was gonna say there's only one more spot.
No, that's her here. She's here.
I jumped the gun.
You did.
Oh my God.
And now we know where Miriam is.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's going so well. And then you'll have the timer going or something, the clock, so I
No.
can see when it's 30.
You need to use it on your cell phone, if you can do that. So,
I hope so.
and put it on Do Not Disturb.
What? Yeah, I got that too.
So,
Airplane mode.
Mike is hot. This one?
What?
So the format is.
We have about 5 minutes.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? It's great.
Hey.
If I change my name, then I'm not.
You have your piece of paper? Perfect.
Yeah. I'm surprising everyone.
So opening comment, two for everything else, and 3 minutes. The only time you go to 3 is closing. Okay?
Okay.
You can have this as soon as
That's good. Yeah, thank you.
Brooke has her.
Timer, 2 minutes. Yeah, I'll start that.
Yep. And then the 3 minutes, but not for closing.
Not for
Okay?
closing it, okay. And
Yep.
you'll let them know.
Yes.
So I'll just kind of pay attention. I can't kind of zone out.
No.
No, you can't.
I mean, I better get used to waking up. So I can
Okay.
keep that early bus.
All right, let me get a pen.
I have to wake up anyway. My high schooler is at school at 7:22. So we're up at
Paid
6.
stuff?
Yeah, 6 o'clock. We're up in my house.
I bet you it's real quiet around 11 o'clock.
Oh, yes, very much so.
All right, that gaffer's too.
I think he had it up there.
Well, I don't think we're getting. What's 5 minutes? The skirt for the.
Yeah, probably not.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, she wants Clayton Fernandez. Four is Iannuzzi. 5 is Sidoti. How do you?
Sidoti.
Sidoti. 6.
Hello. Hi. We have to get her one of these.
Yep, she can have that one.
Does she have this one?
Mm-hmm.
Miriam.
What? Hello? I'm gonna be on TV in a minute, so I gotta go, baby. I'm doing a board event, a candidate forum, but I gotta go, honey. So don't call me back, okay? Bye. Yes, please do. Okay, perfect. Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thank you. We drew numbers out of a hat to determine where everybody was sitting. There wasn't anything left in the hat, so that was you.
I thought the format was that the person who's the first on the ballot is the first to go. That's what I
No,
read.
not our format. That's the one I
that's the other
emailed.
one?
I don't know, that's the one I emailed to everyone.
Hello.
Do any of you have any questions for us before we begin and do introductions or anything like that? No? Okay. Oh, everybody, you have to hold the button to speak.
Do we need to adjust this?
If you'd like, you can. I don't know if you can. I think you just kind of have to hold it.
Just kind of hold.
Yeah, but you have to press the button.
You gotta hold it down.
Yeah.
Testing. A 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we have 2 minutes, so relax, get comfortable. Anything that you need to do?
Testing.
Yeah, if everyone wants to give a little test before we begin, that might be helpful.
Testing.
Testing.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock.
Was there a link that was sent out?
Mm-hmm.
Where was? Did you just send it out?
No, first thing this morning when I got it.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. Thank you for joining us for the annual PTA Council Board of Education Candidate Forum. My name is Mary Monzone, PTA Council President. PTA Council is a governing body that provides support to all of our local PTA units. Our function helps build stronger and more effective units by offering training, coordinating communications amongst units, engaging and coordinating community-wide projects beyond the scope of a single unit, as well as providing strength and unity to planning efforts to solve community-wide issues. As a public service, the PTA Council hosts this forum every year. We believe that informed citizens are responsive citizens who will strive for better schools and a better community. All the questions we will ask tonight have come directly from our PTA units. With us tonight as co-moderator is Leah Rogove, PTA Council President-elect, Brooke Mueller, PTA Council Treasurer, who will go over tonight's format, and Brian Grossbauer, PTA Council Secretary, who will be our timekeeper for this evening. 4 seats on the Board of Education will be on the ballot this year. 2 5-year terms beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2029. 1 vacancy to fill the remainder of the term beginning May 21st, 2024, and ending on June 30th, 2027. And 1 vacancy to fill the remainder of a term beginning May 21st, 2024, and ending on June 30th, 2026. The candidate with the highest and the second highest votes will be elected to the 5-year terms. The candidate with the 3rd highest number of votes will be elected to the term ending on June 30th, 2027. The 4th highest recipient of votes will be elected to the term ending on June 30th, 2026. This year's candidates listed in alphabetical order are Gwen Clayton Fernandez, Miriam DeSeem, Will Iannuzzi, Vincent Malfitano, Philip Sidoti, Sam Single, and Valerie D. Williams. Brooke will now go over tonight's format.
All candidates will be allowed equal response time, 2 minutes for opening statements, 3 minutes for closing statements, and 2 minutes for each of the questions being asked. No additional time is allotted for rebuttals. You may utilize your closing statement for additional comments or rebuttals. All of the questions have come directly from our PTA units and have not been provided to the candidates in advance. We ask the audience to respectfully refrain from excessive exuberance for or against a particular candidate. The orders of speakers was determined by drawing numbers out of a hat. Opening statements will begin with the person drawn first. Question 1 will then go to the person drawn second. With each new question, a different candidate will be the first to respond, rotating through all candidates. This forum is being live streamed and recorded to be shared on any and all formats available to PTAs, including social media and cable television.
Hello, everybody. Unfortunately, Mr. Single could not join us this evening, so he provided a statement for us to read in his absence. Good evening, and thank you to the PTA Council for hosting this event. I am so sorry I am not here in person. I am currently out of town at a long-scheduled work event, but am thrilled to have the opportunity to share my message. I am the father of 2 kids in the New Rochelle school system, Davis and Albert Leonard. My wife and I have been very happy with the education that they have received. Serving on the school board is an opportunity for me to give back to the New Rochelle community. My goal as a board member is to ensure that all our children, teachers, and schools receive the support and resources they need to thrive. I believe that education extends far beyond the classroom, and it is the job of our district to equip students with the skills and mindset needed for lifelong learning and success. I believe my background as a business leader and my perspective as a parent with kids in our public schools will allow me to bring a unique and valuable approach to the board. I look forward to the campaign ahead, remind everyone to vote on the 21st, and again, thank the council for hosting this event tonight.
Okay, so without further ado, we will begin with opening statements, and Ms. DeSeem, you will be first.
Hi, I seem to be lucky. Oh. Hi, I seem to be lucky where I keep drawing first. First on the ballot, first here. My name is Miriam DeSeem. I am a proud graduate of the New Rochelle school system. I want to thank the PTA Council, of which I am the Lincoln Attendance Zone PTA rep to the council, for always being first to provide this forum for us to get to know each other under tight timelines. I came to New Rochelle at the age of 7 from Haiti. I didn't know a lick of English. Within 3 months, I was fluent. I have lifelong friends. I ran track. I was a New Rochelle cheerleader, football and basketball. Now they only do football. I worked at the high school as a junior counselor. We were about 13, 15 through the Community Action Agency, which is 95 Lincoln. The high schools were the senior counselors. The school graders were the campers. We worked together. We learned from each other. We protected each other and had fun. I graduated 10, 12 percentile of my class with a 90.3 average. I say all this to you to show you how I know how to navigate the New Rochelle school system to successfully graduate. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my platform, the top of my platform. Vote for me. I will ensure that all students access all that New Rochelle has to offer, wonderful educational opportunities, so that they have a solid foundation to ensure that they successfully transition into adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Clayton Fernandez?
Welcome, everyone. I know you had a busy night. My name is Gwen Clayton Fernandez. I have lived in New Rochelle since 2001. My children were 1, 3, and 5 when we moved here from California. California has probably one of the most progressive school districts. I had a lot to learn there. When I came to New Rochelle, I knew what I wanted the education to feel like. New Rochelle was a targeted area for me, for the schools. In that 23 years of time, all 3 of my kids have finished college. I'm a small business owner in a restaurant that feels like I'm having 10 more kids, but okay. But it's taught me a lot. Small business is a good pathway for independence, and I just feel like education led me to a really strong place to pursue a small business. But more importantly, the education that I learned in New Rochelle was beyond just what my children were experiencing. It was, they went to board school, Albert Leonard, the high school. One of my children actually went, he really begged me, but he went to master's. That was an eye-opener. It's really important for us as parents to know the landscape, not just in your own backyard, but across the way. So it was great to know that. The other gem that I was able to hold, I still hold it close, is for 6 years I worked with the Boys and Girls Club. And it was in the capacity specifically targeting skills mastery and resistance training. It's a national, it was centered around education. But we know that education is far more complex than what's in the classroom. And what was the beautiful part of that was, and I was only supposed to do the job for 6 months after I set the grant, but I was not going to leave, because what I fell in love with was the challenge, the opportunity to affect 3,000 kids out of school time. I might not have learned
Is that time?
more than just work.
That's time, yeah. Sorry, that's time. Ms. Williams?
Good evening. I'm Valerie D. Williams, and I'm seeking re-election to the New Rochelle Board of Education. My family, my father, he migrated from Virginia in the late 1800s, and my mother migrated from Arkansas in the 1960s for opportunity, education, and freedom. My guiding lights encompass children. I'm a teacher for 30 years, so I've had I've had hundreds of students, and continuity. The trend now is that people are staying on the board for 1 term. As a matter of fact, all of my board colleagues and myself are in our 1st term. However, I have had the opportunity, along with Board President William Iannuzzi, to serve with board members who have multiple terms and who have been past presidents. Also, curriculum. I was on the New York State Common Core Standards Review Committee. Collaboration. I've collaborated with the PTA as a teacher to get books to students, and also with the New York State Legislative Forum with this PTA. And also, another one of my guiding principles is courtesy, to make sure that people are heard and seen. Thank you very much, and please re-elect me to the New Rochelle Board of Education.
Thank you. Mr. Iannuzzi?
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Iannuzzi. Born and raised here in New Rochelle, and I've attended all New Rochelle schools, Webster, Albert Leonard, and graduating New Rochelle High School in 2010. I am a proud Huguenot, a proud New Rochellian. I bleed purple. I have been able to be elected to the Board of Education 5 years ago, and it has been a journey. I've been able to be in many positions on this board, including president for 2 years, vice president for 1 year, policy committee chair. I've been the liaison to the safety committee, to the rescue committee, as well as to the Green Schools Committee. In my 5 years, I believe I've been able to accomplish a lot in my different roles. And one of the things I'm most proud of is bringing proper governance back to the board. Really doing trainings with new board members to understand what our roles are as board member is. I've been the chair of 2 superintendent search committees hiring Jonathan Raymond and Corey Reynolds, who's our current superintendent. In my capacity, we've also passed 4 successful budgets with many different facility upgrades as well as a new bond that we just passed last year where each school will now be getting a security vestibule. Also, 5-year strategic roadmap we've passed and started the first Green Schools initiative in New York State for a school district. I'm excited to be able to be in front of you again to ask for another 5 years. Bringing stability to this board is one of the most important things I feel like I've been able to do. And besides being a board member, I also am the current Chief Programming Officer for the Boys and Girls Club in New Rochelle. So I do serve around 8,000 kids within Westchester County every year and ensuring that I am bringing programming to these kids to make sure that they are reaching their full potential as productive citizens. But once again, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank the PTA Council, and I just want to shout out Gwen Clayton. She actually hired me at the Boys and Girls Club 13 years ago, so it's a coincidence I'm on the same stage with her now. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Sidoti.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the PTA Council for hosting this forum and for all of you that have joined us. For those who may not know me, my name is Philip Sidoti. I was born in Mount Vernon, and from a young age, I became quickly integrated into New Rochelle. I have been involved with New Rochelle youth programs connected to St. Joseph, St. Gabriel, and the Holy Name of Jesus, on and off for about 15 plus years. I am running for school board because I'm personally invested into the school district. However, I am not a product of New Rochelle school system, but a private school system, which I never really experienced how public school system was. And my wife, Diana, a lifetime resident of New Rochelle and a graduate of the high school, always told me how great her school district was compared to mine. However, until I enrolled my children in our school district from preschool currently into elementary school, I did not understand how great this district is. But being involved and going through it with my kids, I have fell in love. For me, our number one priority of any decisions and policies that will come before the school board are the children. And I will strive for equality throughout every school, from the programs that are available to the number of staff to student ratio. I will advocate for programs that are geared towards trades like cosmetology, electric, plumbing, carpentry, and automotive. I speak from experience. College may not be for everybody. My wife and I are trade workers, and we have a very good life for ourselves.
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano.
There we go. Thank you. I'd like to thank the PTA Council for hosting this again. It's good to be back here again. Couple of things. Some of you may know me. I've been in town about 43 years with my family. My older kids went through the system. My younger kids are still in the system. I was a public school teacher in New York City for nearly 34 or 5 years. Special ed teacher, administrator. I worked at a private school for court-sentenced juveniles for some years. That's my life's work. I'm also an attorney, but I'm kind of retired. I've got the time to help our school district. I don't have to worry about being in other places. A couple of things that are of some importance. Well, my curriculum vitae, NYU back in the 70s, education, master's in special ed, College of Rochelle, professional diploma, school administration, superintendent certification, Pace University, and Pace Law School. All of that goes to say that I believe in public service. I was a union man, union rep down in the city, and I believe in unions and union benefits and what they can do. A couple of things really stand out. One of the issues we're going to get into tonight is this incredible proposal to remake the starting times of our elementary schools. Now, I went to practically all of the budget meetings, and nobody brought it up. I spoke to the superintendent, and I liked the man, but I said, you know, I was there down at Trinity, and nobody talked about this. I spoke to a lot of the union members who say they don't really know much about it either. Now, other than redistricting our schools, perhaps the most important thing that can happen is, when does your kid go to school? When does he get picked up? after-school programs, babysitters, transportation. You need a board that's actually concerned about parental involvement. I don't think we have that right now. It's time for change, people.
All right, so now we are going to move on to questions. And Mrs. Clayton Fernandez, you are up first. Ongoing two-way communication between the school district and parents is key to building strong partnership and trust. How will you engage the community to improve public schools in the district?
Well, that's a big job, but I would say that it starts with some strategic assessing. All the different schools all are a little bit different. So I think that if we were to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the different school districts and go towards the end game, have an end game where we know these are the goals we want. We want to create experiences that lead the kids positively to those goals. I've witnessed young people shine brighter and brightest when they are giving some clear directives and the parents understand the map. But this doesn't come with just policy. This really comes with a deep dive and knowing what we start, what's our end goal, and how we're gonna get to it. And I do think that children, if they have, even if it's 1st and 10, a goal on a football field, just look for small wins. And I think that ultimately, with a bigger map, we can do it.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Williams, the same question for you. Ongoing two-way communication between the school district and parents is key to building strong partnership and trust. How will you engage the community to improve public schools in the district?
I would engage parents in the community in public schools by being out in the community and speaking to people and finding out what their needs and wants are and sharing that information with my colleagues on the board and the superintendent as I do now. And also, if there are concerns from the community, I recommend that individuals email the superintendent and the board colleagues so that we know what the concerns are. When we first came on the board 5 years ago, it was very contentious and there was a lot of protesting. But a lot of changes were made through the emails and through our attendance at different public events. So talking to people and listening and being empathetic, and also working with community partners, the superintendent, and colleagues on the board to come up with viable solutions, because if it's a problem for one person, it's for other people too. So we are a community, we are neighbors in New Rochelle, so we have to look out for each other and we have to share information and come up with solutions on how to tackle things and also how to communicate before it becomes a problem. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Iannuzzi?
Thank you so much for the question. This is a great question, actually, and it brings up a point that Mr. Malfitano just talked about with the decisions about potentially changing school times. As board president, I do apologize to the community because what was sent out had no community involvement or community input. And I do apologize for that because we don't want to cause angst or anger in the community. The plan has not been finalized, and I'm hoping that with the continued engagement of the community by sending emails to the superintendent and the board, we listen to your emails, we read your emails, we read your concerns and comments. So I ask you to continue reaching out to us. The plan is not finalized, and the board hasn't even been updated on the final plan. But I mean, about two-way communication, in this scenario, there wasn't two-way communication. And I want to apologize as board president because I've strived in my 5 years to try to bring a sense of community back to New Rochelle and to the Board of Education. And in my 5 years, I've had my open policy around responding to emails. I've attended as many events as I possibly can to every school in the district. I really want the Board of Education to be as in tune with the community as possible. And I just want to say, like, in this 5 years, I think the one area, the one time that I really think we got it right was the superintendent search for Dr. Reynolds. And if you were a part of the Citizens Advisor Committee at that time, we had over 200 people in the Whitney Young Auditorium asking the really open questions to the candidates. I strive to be in that position as much as possible, and if there's any grace you can give me at this time, I would appreciate it, but working harder as possible to bring the community in to where I am, I'm going to strive to do that.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sidoti?
For those that know me, I'm all about communication. In the west end of New Rochelle, I've been a very big advocate for our parish, St. Joseph. So I'm not shy going on the news, talking to the community, knocking on people's doors and letting them know personally what's going on as best as I could. I'm very involved, not only within the school that my children are at, but Little League youth soccer. I see common parents that are from either the school district that I go to, or they may go to a different district. We talk, and if I'm as a board member and I hear things, I'm all about transparency. I'm not going to say, oh, let me wait for a meeting to happen for you guys to hear it. If I'm sitting on the sideline and I'm talking to a parent and they're asking me questions, I'm going to be open and honest, say, this is what we're thinking about discussing. What's your opinion about it? And I think that's the best way, besides even utilizing social media. I'm sure we all are on it somehow, and follow the bad moms of New Rochelle or moms and dads in New Rochelle, and keep up on that. Reach out to the people who complain. There's a lot of it could be nonsense complaining, but there are parents out there that have concerns, and their voice needs to be heard. So I'll do my best to reach out to them, talk to our community, go to the different areas that they have community meetings. Like, I'm from Residence Park. There's a community meeting there every once in a while. East End Civic Center has a community meeting. So you got to be out there and talk to the people.
Thank you. And Mr. Malfitano?
Yes, thank you. Well, a couple of things. I think the district did a good thing creating the Office of Family Engagement. That was a good thing. And there are some good efforts to try to contact and stay in touch with the community. The superintendent is accessible. But there's a bunch of things here. First of all, I think one of my big selling points, of course, is I'm retired. I have all the time in the world to be your servant. Not everybody else can say that. A couple things to reach out to the community. Do you know the cable system in our district was out for 3 years? I harangued the district, I don't know how long. That's a system that reaches mostly our elderly folks who aren't too tech savvy. For 3 years, our district let that free service go fallow in our district. Imagine that. And we hardly use it now. There are so many things can be done with that cable system, and it's not being touched. Speaking time is very important. Do you know you used to have 5 minutes to come and speak at the board? But then they whittled it down to 3. And of course, if you take some stay awake pills till 10 o'clock at night, you might get your 3 minutes. I've suggested for years that they move the public speaking time up before the presentations at the schools. People can go home and see that, but families want to get their kids to bed. Let people come out and speak earlier. And of course, the open meetings law. You ought to go to one of our meetings and hear the warnings if, God forbid, you talk out of turn. It's amazing. We need to amend the open meeting law to say people have the right to speak at a public meeting. Right now, you only have the right to speak by their gracious leave. We need more board members who actually respect community involvement.
Thank you. Ms. DeSeem?
Do you mind
Oh,
repeating
not
the
at all.
question? Just
So,
to make sure.
sure. The question was, ongoing two-way communication between the school district and parents is key to building strong partnership and trust. How will you engage the community to improve public schools in the district?
So communication is the second most important item on my platform. I attend just about every Board of Ed meeting. They think I'm a board member already. I, I am, we are always trying to figure out how the information that's presented to the board, which is very diluted, um, how the board is able to make decisions, because everything that happens in the district, the board um, has to approve in resolution. So that is something that I really hope to change so that we can better communicate to you and you know everything that's going on. Now, to better engage the community, I think we need to have more opportunities where we have actual dialogue. This one-way thing where we just look at you, can't talk to you, and you never get an answer to your questions is unacceptable. And I think we have lots of ways to go out into the community and talk to folks, have the dialogue, participate in events so that we can reach kids. The other thing that I think we need to understand is I love the PTA, and that is the board's go-to way of communicating to the community, but they must recognize that it doesn't represent everyone. Join the PTA because it's great, but it doesn't represent everyone, and we need to reach out to the churches, to the synagogues, to all of the different avenues that we have to speak to individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2, we're going to start with you, Ms. Williams. What are your 3 overall education priorities that, in a perfect world, you would accomplish during your time in office? How will you go about achieving them, and why are these the most important?
My first is continuity. So that is why I'm running for reelection, because we need institutional knowledge on our school board. So that's one thing. But primarily children. Children first, and I want to make sure that all students in the New Rochelle Public Schools receive a world-class education. And also collaboration and courtesy. I want to promote two-way dialogue. Uh, we need to improve our communication with our community to know what people are thinking and to know the needs of our families and also our children.
Mr. Iannuzzi?
Thank you very much for this question. This is actually last week I had the opportunity to participate with a group of New Rochelle High School students at City Hall, and we did a mock Board of Ed meeting, and it was actually really cool because I got to hear directly from the students areas of New Rochelle High School or the district in general they would want to improve. And I'm glad Mr. Sidoti actually mentioned it in his opening statement about the BOCES program that we currently have in New Rochelle. So if you don't know, we bus kids, hundreds of kids every day to Valhalla, to the Southern Westchester BOCES where they can do electrical, there's cooking, there's beautician, there's AV audio, there's also a security program. We spend millions of dollars sending kids there, and they have to ride a bus almost 1.5 hours each day round trip. And talking to these kids, the excitement they had of what if we can build something like this in New Rochelle, like there used to be in the old days? What if we can build a trades program in New Rochelle and look at whether it be the College of New Rochelle or the Blessed Sacrament High School and potentially have a program like this in New Rochelle? And I thought that was something I would love to explore if I get another 5 years on the board. I also want to continue looking at student engagement. Coming out of COVID, students are not as engaged as they used to be. A lot of them skip classes, don't want to go to school. So looking at some new programming we can bring into New Rochelle High School to get kids actually excited about coming to school. Also, I want to further our Green Schools initiative that we have right now. We're looking at different ways to improve our schools, find savings through sustainability, but also improving green education for our students from elementary to high school. So I want to explore that as much as possible, and we've been doing great work with that. Each school currently has a Green Schools committee, and we actually have students on the committee as well to get their input. But thank you, that was a great question.
Mr. Sidoti? Yes. What are your 3 overall education priorities that, in a perfect world, you would accomplish during your time in office? How will you go about achieving them, and why are these the most important?
Well, I would have to say my first one is to continue from my opening statement about having in-house trades. That's something that our school district could go over, handle, teach. College is very important, but myself, I'm a tradesman, and that is important as well. The jobs that need to be taken out there that you could have a living off of without going to college. And, giving that opportunity to our kids equally, not where we're busing them off to somewhere where we have to fight for a number of seats in a program that we could handle our own kids in our school district is something I would fight for, push for. I would talk to the children about and see how they like it, how they like to implement it. Um, Also, agreeing with Will on the engagement and keeping that graduation number rate up, that kids are staying in school, paying attention, engaged, participating. And by doing that, you have to join or participate within all the different districts' programs and things they have available for the kids to talk to. And lastly is education and mainly safety for our kids. Have this municipalities, the police and fire, have all the plans for our school boardings, understand our schools, the doorways, the hallways, all safety measures. I would have them directly involved with our kids. It's nice to know, oh, this is Officer Dan, and yes, this is little Johnny.
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to read something to you which touch on my first goal. This was published by our, I think it was the high school, about 5-6 months ago. I'm reading now. New Rochelle High School Leadership Course focuses on economics and citizenship. There's a quote. New Rochelle High School has created a class for white children to teach leadership principles and establish a sense of personal, oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. It says, New Rochelle High School has created a class for students of color. Is there a difference in the racism? If you say yes, then that's our problem. I would like a school district to hire people who are race neutral, who say, I will judge you, as Dr. King said, on the content of your character, not the color of your skin. Now, when I complained about this, I sent an email to no answers. For 2 months, finally they published, oh, it's open to everybody like it always is. What a lie. Now, I'm suggesting to you, you need a board who's cognizant of these kind of racial discriminatory practices. We don't need that in New Rochelle, folks. If you think we do, oh my God, are we in trouble? My first goal, of course, is to hire people who see that. Second goal, our high school is now ranked around the 70th, 75th. Is this working? Our high school is ranked about the 70th, 75th percentile nationwide. U.S. News and World Report. We came in something like 5,000 something hundred. There's more to do, especially for the kids that can't afford tutors, especially for the kids that are sliding under the radar.
Thank you. Ms. Tassim?
As I said, my top three educational opportunities. The first one that I talked about was ensuring that all children have access to all the wonderful opportunities that we offer here. I am not big on programs. Programs can be great, but I first want to look at our work processes, our school processes, on how we do things. We are already successful. We have many kids that graduate, go to the best schools, and do well. While we have other kids and many other kids who graduate, they graduate and still end up on the street corner. We need to change that. We offer way too much. So I'm interested in making sure that we work on the processes that we have so that it is operable for everyone and everybody has access. That's the first one. The second one, again, communication is key. And as you could see, by what we just talked about with the transportation. We're not very good at it. I listened to the board president just talk about how the board didn't co-sign on this yet we have a superintendent that sent out a letter stating emphatically that this is happening, whether the budget passes or not. And I know Dr. Reynolds isn't someone who takes any unnecessary risk. So there's a big disconnect here and how this all happened. Part of communication, I think, and how we can make it happen is to standardize what the board is receiving. We let people know the presentations need to contain a certain amount of material. I love seeing the performances by our children, but that's not the time that we do that. We need to do real Board of Ed business, which is what we haven't been doing a lot of. The other thing is, I think we should have people Board of Ed forums. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez?
For me, I feel like if we, three most educational priorities, I would target the elementary schools, target number 1, target number 2, the middle school, and the high school. And what I mean by that is the elementary schools, their biggest struggle are giving the tools to the parents, letting them understand all of the options. It's not easy to be children today in this social media environment. It's changed, it keeps changing. I think it's very hard to be a child in this climate. And I think it's important that parents understand their role, that their backpack, when it leaves the house, that backpack does belong to them. They should know what's in it. I think that if we were to strengthen the steps and really target the beginning of the education, which is the foundation of elementary school. When you get to middle school, that's the fork in the road. That's where we need to double down and get to know all of the counselors, know the hiccups they're having, the struggles. Once we can identify some of the weaknesses, we can attack them. We can go after the weaknesses and make those supportive moments instead of failures. Finally, for high school, that's the end where the leadership has to recycle itself, where the older students come back and help the younger students. This synergy, this all hands on deck starts not just with the school teachers. It starts with parents. It starts with how we listen. So I do think targeting the elementary stages going up to high school is going to be the most critical part. So I would want to see the goals on each school individually and collectively.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Iannuzzi, this one is for you. Here we go. What is your view of the role of charter schools in public education? What is your position on charter schools, and do you see the need for a charter school in New Rochelle?
Thank you so much. So this has been an issue that I have been looking into investigating for the past several months since the charter school announced that they wanted to open up at Holy Family. If you watch the Board of Education meeting at, I believe it was Isaac Younger Webster School, I emphatically am against a charter school coming into New Rochelle. There's a litany of reasons. One is the money that they will be sucking out of our budget for a school that does not have an elected Board of Education, a school that has board trustees that they can decide how to spend all that money the way they want. Now, it's almost $18,000 per student would go to that charter school. And now if you did the math and they want to open 400 kids, it's millions of dollars, $7 to $8 million that we would have to figure out how to replace in our budget. The charter school also does not have to hire licensed teachers, which is crazy. We have an amazing group of teachers here in New Rochelle through our Federation of United School Employees, our FUSE teachers. And to think about having teachers teach your kids that aren't licensed, I would never send my kid to something like that. And, you know, I mean, I'm going to be blunt and honest with you guys, just the way that this charter school came about. And if you look at several news articles, there are lies after lies after lies that we, the school district, supported this. Absolutely not. That the superintendent and Board of Ed president co-signed on this. That never happened. And I'm telling you here, and you can go on the school district website, you can go on my campaign website, you can see the video where I spent over 3 minutes talking about why I'm against charter schools. But bottom line, I'm against the charter school that wants to propose, and there's potentially a second charter school that wants to open up now in New Rochelle. If we open this floodgates, it won't stop. So I hope you are with me as well in saying no to charter schools in New Rochelle.
Thank you. Mr. Sidoti?
Well, this is why I'm running for school board, because my main question is, why does the charter school feel the need to be able to do business in the city? What do they see? Do they see a decrease in enrollment of kids in our school district? And they say, oh, maybe we could get them. Maybe our school district is not doing their job up to par. So they feel the need, they are able to come and do business here. So, you know what? I'm against the idea of a charter school if our school district gets up to par and gives them a reason not to be here. I do not support them 100%. I want to learn a little more about them, but I want to know more of why they think they could be here. What do they see that we don't? I know our numbers and our enrollment numbers have dropped in past years from year to year to year. Is that a reason? Are kids getting pulled out of our school district mid-year and being sent to a parochial school or somewhere else? So for right now, my stance is, when I get on the Board of Education, there will be no reason a charter school should be here, because we will straighten out what's already good in our school district and make it better and give them a reason not to do business here, so we could help our own children in our district.
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano?
Yes. Well, years ago, I was on a committee that helped pick some of the first small schools in New York City. And one of the things I did was I worked with one of the oldest charter schools. And I'll give you a quick story in a couple minutes. Walked into a classroom, and I found this young teacher there crying in an empty room. I went over to him, I said, what's the matter? He says, I'm going to get fired. I said, why? He says, I was told that if all of my kids don't score, if the average score is an 85 on the global regents, I'm going to get fired. And mine was 84.5. Well, that's where unions are important, folks, which are not part of the charter school network. Okay? Charter schools have a place for some. I don't think we really need them here, but as Mr. Sidoti has hit the point, it isn't about dollars and cents and money. That's important. But what is important is why. I went to both of the meetings that charter school I had over at the library to ask questions and hear what he's talking about. The question is, what do these folks see in our community that makes us ripe for the picking? I'm suggesting it's, well, unfortunate leadership at the top. Our school board has been more focused on their own political agendas, their own feel-good stuff, rather than supplying quality across the board education day in, day out. It's criminal what doesn't happen. So please, folks, think. I hope more than 5.4% of you bother to come out and vote. Please, folks, this is your school district. Charter schools, if people don't want them, they won't pick them.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Decine?
I do not believe in charter schools. I think most of them are a parasite on the public school system. The things that they highlight, that they do, smaller classrooms, providing longer days, which I don't think necessarily tells you that you're going to have a better education, that all of those things are not anything that really determines that it's a better education. I do understand, though, that the school district, New Rochelle, as well as other public school districts in the nation, do not properly educate or adequately educate all of their students. And that's what I've talked about here. And so you have parents who are at their ends wits and needing and wanting something different. But I praise that we have a wonderful school system. Why add bureaucracy and loss of funding to this already difficult and challenging task to properly educate your kids by putting in a charter school system? The other question and pushback that we really need to have is, why does the state and the country keep pushing charter schools into our public school systems? We need to ask that and understand how that's happening, because they get to get a charter school without a lot of say-so from us. And we need to advocate against that. And not that you can't have a really grassroots charter school that could work. Marva Collins in Chicago was one of them she had a phenomenal school. I understand that, but generally they don't work and they don't teach
Thank
our kids
you.
any better. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez?
So I'm in agreement on no charter schools. I think the public school system has a very high bar. It's very competitive for teachers to come in and do their best work. I also think that the standards and the letters of fidelity and measures of success, all of that are deeply embedded and organized in our public school system. It's more inclusive, and it also allows for a greater sense of creativity for the student in terms of finding their strength and building their own platforms. The greatest thing that our kids can learn is the will and want to be where they are. That motivation doesn't just come from helicopter parents or schools. Charter schools muddy the water. New Rochelle, I've witnessed it. I've watched my children thrive in this school environment. And you learn when you're in your tribe of like-minded, and whether you look like your person in your tribe, your like-minded values of interest in books, your love for STEM, your love for sports and all of the other things that make school special. Kids have to want to love to be in school. That's number one. That's why I believe that a public school system building strong personal values, ethics that are really accountable, that's going to be the big strength for all of our kids.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Public school is a jewel in the crown of the Queen City of the Sound. I wholeheartedly believe in that. I'm a public school teacher. I believe in public education. Also, I think that this is an opportunity where, as a district, as a community, we can talk about what we're offering in our school and how to offer more to more children. So I say no to charter school. We have what we need in our district. We need to work on our communication, two-way communication, or three-way communication, or communication between our stakeholders to see what the needs and wants are of our children and our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Mr. Sidoti, you get this question. It's a long one. When staffing shortages, reading specialists, therapists, special education teachers, etc., affect children with special education programming, the district may be legally out of compliance with those children's individual education programs, IEPs. What measures do you think the Board of Education can take to help ensure that the students with disabilities receive supports and services they are entitled to?
Well, I would concentrate on our budget for this answer, and I would go towards the tax abatements and the pilot programs that have been given to the buildings with the school revenue from the new development, and see, since we have not received that, would that monies be able to help these necessary needs to the kids and either You know, we have in our school system that our school cannot handle, so it's our responsibility to educate them and find them somewhere that is able to handle them. So we definitely need more help in that. I have a personal friend that goes through that right now in our school system. And I would focus on being able to have finances directly issued and publicated to make that available to all our students that need it.
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano?
Well, at the last budget meeting I attended down at Trinity, this question came up, and I spoke with the superintendent about the 22 new positions that are budgeted. What's going on? Budgeted for special ed. The question came to my mind. Historically, our district has usually had about a 10% special ed population. That goes back for decades. Now it's about 18%. Now, I've asked what accounts for this and didn't get 100% clarity, but Superintendent did say on the issue of compliance that a lot of these positions were hired to try to draw our district out of having to request waivers from class mandate size. Now, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Special ed is my area for nearly 40 years. So what I'm suggesting is the budget has some positive aspects for our special ed kids. But what Mr. Sidoti is talking about is very important. Like I said, I've been going to Board of Ed meetings more than maybe some members have actually been on the board. And at one of the meetings I attended, some of the board members were asking questions of the business guy. Well, what is this pilot? How does that work? How much money do we get? And I sat there, almost fell out of my chair. Then I come to learn that our school board has neglected to have one of the board members sit on the IDA for what, nearly 2 years now? I don't know how long. We have that right. Somebody to watch the store when Capelli and these boys are getting their millions. Like I say, folks, we need a change here. These guys are worried about stuff not affecting your lives. IDA tax abatements, not important to them. No board members sitting on the IDA. Imagine that. But meanwhile, they got time for all kinds of other stuff.
Thank you. Mrs. Seem?
This is a puzzle to me. Every year, our school budget, is that better? Okay. Every year, our school budget, we talk about hiring new folks for special ed education. This year, the school budget was presented to us. 33 people retired. They hired 22 people for special ed, and that leaves us a minus of 9 people. But I said, did the 33 people come out of special ed? You're hiring everyone in special ed? We need to understand, who did we lose? Who are you bringing back? And the difference. So every year I hear this, but we seem to always be short. So there seems to be something wrong with how we're calculating it. So this goes back to making sure that we get the proper information so that we can adequately make decisions on how we're running things. The other thing I'm going to say is you have a staffing shortage, because my experience in the school district is that we don't adequately pay the special ed aides in particular. We don't give them, I think, the value and the respect that they should have for the important work that they do. So a lot of folks are not interested in doing that job. So we can do a better job at that. There are also, I know we've talked a lot about us sending our kids out to other places and all of this, and how we can bring some more things in-house so that we have a more complete and total program and can maybe better staff it that way. But we really need to get a hold of this, because every year I hear that we're hiring more special ed to meet the requirements, but we're never, ever adequate. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez?
I have a long history with children that suffer those kind of challenges. I have a brother that was in that school system, public. It's a big blind spot for parents. It's important that we always keep an open mind and an open heart to that and not just tether it to a budget. Because it's a blind spot, I think that if, those challenges are all a little different for different grades. I've met some of those students and I've met many of those teachers, and the challenges they really face is they think it's one size fits all. So that's when we should have some policy that curates what that means. And that's not something that just can happen on an email or a call. That's really understanding every year how that department is struggling. The other thing is the staffing shortages are probably one of the biggest downfalls we have here. That's where we have to double down and try to support the teachers with a kind of listening that says, what kind of volunteers do you need? There are a lot of out of seniors, people who have stopped working, high school students who need credits. That's where you start to build teams to work with those challenges, and don't just leave it up to the hired paid help. This is an all hands on deck kind of experience. It gets better when we're all on the same page.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Thank you for the question. There's a shortage of special education educators. So one thing that we can do is try to attract more special education teachers to the field. And that might mean reviewing the certification requirements. But that would be one of the advocacy functions of the board. Also, providing opportunities for the other support personnel to be able to adequately support the needs of our students, and also pay equity for the aides and the teaching assistants who are also part of the special education team. Thank you.
Mr. Iannuzzi?
Thank you for this question. So as I mentioned before, 5 years ago when I entered the district, there was a lot of instability, and the special education department was with that instability, with a revolving door of directors and different officers in that department. And what Mr. Malfitano said as well is that we've seen an increase of students with IEPs since COVID. And with that, we need to meet the mandated requirements of what staff we need to meet to serve those kids, whether it be a 12-on-1 class or et cetera. So the 22 new SPED educators we have in the budget is trying to tackle that problem. But there needs to be more investment in that department. This past year, the Board of Education did approve a new special education audit that was conducted over many, many months, where an outside consultant met with families and special education students, the department, different principals and families, and they created an evaluation plan that for 4 to 5 years with different improvements. I'm excited to see we're finally moving towards those improvements, and I'm hoping that it won't take the full 4 to 5 years, because that is a long time, especially with parents who have students already in high school or ready to graduate. As Mr. Seema already said as well, we do spend a lot of money sending kids out of district as well, because we're not in compliance with our IEPs and we are getting sued. So we need to really look at the different procedures that we have to ensure that we're not being sued anymore, to ensure that we're actually meeting the educational necessity of the kids that come to our schools, instead of then shipping them out of district. We also need to be more innovative with some ideas. We bought all this property next to Columbus. Why can't we build an OT-PT center for our special education students instead of them sending to private facilities? So really looking at different ways we can innovate, but ensuring that we are meeting the requirements that we are mandated to meet.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Malfitano, what do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities, and how would you describe an effective school board member?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat that again, please?
Of course. What do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities, and how would you describe an effective school board member?
Well, that's uh, the school board basically hires the superintendent, proposes and puts on a budget. That's it. So now we got to really make sure we get the right people to get together to hire the right superintendent, because that's where everything flows from. In terms of my responsibility, ask yourself, what do you want in a board member? You want somebody who blows into town that you never heard of, but because he joins the right group or political party, somebody says, hey, you got a couple open seats on the board. Is that who you want? Okay, maybe that's politics, but it's not good governance. Look at David Peters. Here's a guy who comes into town, says I'm running for board, sits on the board for a hot year, and then ditches us. And now he's elevated to city council. I remember people used to sit on this board like Mary Jane Rennington and others for 25 years. Okay, there was dedication. Not anymore. Now it's to satisfy your political woke wet dreams. It's really unfortunate that we've gotten that way. A board needs to find a way to work to resolve issues. Now, say, Mr. Malfitano, how are you going to work with these people? Oh, how are they going to work with me? We got to work together for the betterment of this community. But right now, there is no diversity on your school board. It's a one-size-fits-all. Nobody votes. A few people show up. The same lawns get signs every year. And for you folks out there, maybe you want to try a little diversity. It might help us get out of the doldrums in this town. I hope you want that, because I want to work with these people and make our district better for everybody. But my goodness, there is such fear and hatred. And we're seeing it come out now. The same ugly emails and crap like happened a few years ago against Steve Mayo when he ran, calling him a hateful, ignorant racist. We don't want that in our town.
Thank you. Mr. Seem?
So, a successful school board member is engaged. I would be able to speak to any community. There's a constant I hear, well, we can't speak on it. If you only knew what we know, legally, we are not, if we speak on it, we could be held. And I understand that there's concerns with that, but we got to be able to say something. So we have to be very well engaged. The other thing about the school board is that everyone talks that it's just to hire the superintendent and pass the budget. False. Everything that happens in the school district, the school board votes on a resolution to approve it. So you have to be well aware of what's going on, what's being presented to you, how it's going to happen, how it will be implemented and executed, like transportation that we're talking about right now. It makes no sense that we have a superintendent writing out that we're definitely going to this, and then our school board president is saying we didn't approve this yet. I don't understand that disconnect. And it's no knock on anybody, but it's the way we are operating that is unacceptable and flawed. And we have to change that. And that's what I plan on doing. It's how we get the information, and to make sure that the information that we get is clearly communicated to our community and that they have input and we understand what it means to everyone. That is what I think is part of a successful school board person. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clayton Fernandez?
So I've given a lot of thought to that question, because people are busy. What do you want to do when you show up at the table? Do you want to just be airspace, or do you want to get things done? I like to get things done. One of the reasons that I committed to this was because of the roles and responsibilities. The board has an opportunity to do something really powerful. We have the opportunity to change the lives for all of our children, starting at a young age until they leave their high school campus. That's not something that should be political. That's something that should be from the heart. That means you show up, you care, you do the footwork. You also care about the young people that are out there and hear what they're saying, that it's not just about us sitting at the desk. I believe that our job is to take our experiences as parents who have already failed and succeeded, take it to the mat and put it in there for every child. All those experiences. What would we do over? My kids are grown, but they still need me. They still need their community. It doesn't just change because they've aged out. It doesn't change when we leave as leaders. We still care about this community. You show up when you're a board member, you take the challenge, and you fall in love with the work, not the other challenges politically and whatnot.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Yes, well, there's a lot of research on being an effective board member. And some of the findings are collaboration, being engaged, also forth policies that lead to student engagement, and also community engagement. And governance is not the day-to-day operations of the school district. That's in the purview of the superintendent. But the superintendent is the hire of the school board, and the school board advises the superintendent. And as a board, that's what we do. So we're not overstepping and telling the superintendent what to do because that is the superintendent's job. But our job is to offer governance for the entire district to work for student achievement and the betterment of all of the students and the faculty and staff in the district.
Thank you. Mr. Iannuzzi?
So my answer is going to be one part more like reading from what a book and what a true board member's roles and responsibilities are, because I've had many, many trainings on this over my 5 years on the board. Proper governance, as Ms. Williams said, is the most important thing a board member can do. You need to know your role. You need to know when you are overstepping and what you're supposed to be doing as a board member. I've implemented in my time as president, we do 2 retreats a year, and one of them is focused solely on governance. And we get professionals to come in to ensure each board member understands their role so they're not overstepping. We've seen people in the past as board members overstep, and we can't do that again. Fiscal responsibility is the other one. Ms. DeSeem said, oh, we only focus on the budget. No, it's not true, because we have audit committee meetings many times a year where we're reviewing the internal and external audits. We have monthly treasury reports we review as well. And then policy recommendations. Me and Ms. Williams have both served as policy chair of the policy committee. We review our policies to ensure that we are in compliance with the state. We have to make sure that we're in compliance, because if we're not, we're gonna get in trouble. We are one of 9 people, and if you don't have 5, nothing can happen. Rogue board members are a real thing. It derails meetings, it makes more work for the administration, and it makes us unstable. And I'm gonna be very honest, there's people on this table right now that I don't feel comfortable that they won't be rogue board members. Effective board members are those that collaborate, and I don't see people on this table collaborating. Thank you.
And Mr. Sidoti?
Well, to just go over what most of the people have already said about roles of a board members, obviously hiring the superintendent and reviewing and interviewing and passing that knowledge on to other people in PTA, reviewing the budget and policies and making sure they get implemented and following through on them. Working together with your colleagues with some common sense decision making. That's why I would like to be on the board. I'm a parent. I understand what the parents are going to. I talk to many parents, like I said, from Little League, and I want to bring all those concerns as a board member up to the board and say, this is what I hear on the street. I don't know if you guys hear the same thing, but we should be talking about certain things. And then be engaged on every aspect. I can't see something being done without talking to each other and coming to a resolution that will be good, not for any of us, and personally, not for any of you, really for the children that are getting educated within the school district. And that really should be the #1 priority of any school board member is giving the best to our children and making sure they can have a great future. So it makes our future better.
Thank you very much. Okay, this next question goes to Mr. Malfitano. Oh, no, did you just start with Malfitano? DeSeams. Sorry. Miriam, you get this question.
Okay.
Name one thing that the New Rochelle Board of Education has done that you think is strong and you want to make sure it continues. Name one constructive criticism of the BOE that you would like to contribute to improving if elected.
One thing that is strong, we're going to start out with the positive. Shoot, I am having a hard time. I'm sorry, but my feeling overall is that our Board of Ed members, or as a group, not the members, people are working very hard, and I know well-intended, but I feel that overall we have been dysfunctional. I think we have worked really hard to bring some stability to our school district. I don't know that we have reached it the way folks want to claim that we've reached it. We've spent a lot of money. That's why right now we're looking at all kinds of issues. Our tax levy is 3.95%, and I don't understand why it's double what we've had in the past. So strong is that we try to get some stability and realize it. And a criticism, constructive criticism, oh, there's a whole bunch. Really, it's to make sure that we're looking at all of the issues, effectively communicating in our board meetings so that people really get an idea of what it is that have robust discussions about the issues, be honest. We don't have to have this false, oh, we all agree on everything and that means that we're a good board. No, that came out of one of the committees, Board of Ed committees. People want to see us have robust discussions so that we understand the issues and the different positions and fully communicate what's going on. So I say, again, in the name of, and I don't mean to be sound like I'm picking on Will, but it's not a matter of not collaborating, but it is a matter of making sure that we all have all the information. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez.
I'm a little new to all of the big list, but I'm going to say off the top, I believe that one of the strongest things that's happened is the appointing of our superintendent. I know that was a very deep dive into qualities and just capability and like-minded thinking, and also just a superintendent that was really prepared for the hard work. I thought they did a good job with that. I would say that the criticisms, I'd say, I think the biggest challenge they probably have is just keeping up with the aging facilities, prioritizing the budget towards, repairs and new school systems, new systems for all of the STEM and science classrooms. I believe they've made those things a priority, but I do think when they're struggling with budget, it's like, what do you pick off first? I do think if I were to say what I'd like to see a little bit more of, and what I've met so far, I see a very strong mindset to collaborate. I see the will to succeed. We have great teachers. I think we have a growing board that is committed to that. And I think if we're committed to that, we can collaborate, we can bring the conversation to the table, and we'll listen. We get a lot done if we're all on the same team.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you. I think when I first came on the board in 5 years, the district was in turmoil. At this time, we have stability and civility. So those are the strengths, and we want to keep that. what I would like to, in my second term, what I would like to see happen is two-way communication between the board and between the community, or rather the superintendent and the community. So that is something that I would like to see. And also, part of the turmoil that we had when I first came onto the board was about um, the displacement of the Huguenot Academy. So the thing that I would work on with my board colleagues in my second term would be to find a forever home for the Huguenot Academy. And also, we don't have yes people on the board. And there have been many times when we voted on things that I didn't agree with. People respected my point of view. And I saw that maybe like a few years later, like a year and a half later, that they were swayed to my point of view. So I see that it's a board that does listen, but we are bound by New York State law and governance. So it's not easy. Does it happen as quickly as we would like it to? No, it does not, but we're steadfast.
Thank you. Mr. Iannuzzi?
So I want to echo a little bit of what Ms. Williams and Ms. Clayton Fernandez said as well. I think stability, you know, be it as you is, I've been on the board for 5 years. What I walked into to what is now, we are stable. And it was turmoil, as Ms. Williams said, when we walked in 5 years ago. Hiring Corey Reynolds, I mean, whatever your opinion of him, he is a strong administrator. His depth of knowledge of educational issues and his connections within Westchester County is something that we strongly needed as a superintendent. And if I'm bold enough to say, I can see him as one of those long-term Linda Kelly type superintendents with his tenure. I also want to say one other just good thing is that our investment in the science research program here at New Rochelle High School. If you don't know what it is, it's an amazing program. I was here the other night in this theater watching the senior send-off, and these kids are actually, one kid is researching a vaccine, which is insane. They actually have a mentor in a hospital, and I just was amazed and blown away by what these students are doing in this program. One thing we can improve, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say it, communication, obviously. Communication is something that the board, the superintendent, the board to the community has not been strong, and I'll admit it, and I think that's something we can definitely work on.
Thank you. Mr. Sidoti?
What first part of the question about positive within the school district or the school system or the board?
Name one thing the New Rochelle Board of Education has done that you think is strong and you want to make sure it continues. Name one constructive criticism of the Board of Education that you would like to contribute to improving, if elected.
Directly of what the board has done to be positive, it's a group of things. Our board hasn't led our school system in complete turmoil. I love our school system. I personally deal with Trinity, and their positivity there, the way they get kids in and out of school, the way that principal shows strength, love, and compassion to his children, it's literally comes from underneath a parent's wing, and it goes right under his. So I say that as a very positive thing. I feel that personally, just because Trinity, because I go there, I have family in Columbus that feels the same way, and Isaac. And I think that's a very positive thing that could also obviously be built on. Things that could be worked on, and you know, everything's not perfect, so there's always something we could work on. And you know, throughout my history with the city, I've always been an advocate going against these pilot programs and these abatements. We have to understand that as a school. And that's even the way we should teach our kids, right? We balance our checkbooks. So we should be able to balance the school budget checkbooks the same way and understand when we're not there on the court, we can't receive a pass, we can't make a shot. So if we're not in the meetings of the IDA and understanding collectively all the new buildings are only paying about $2.8-ish million into school tax, which yes, over years will go more, but over years costs go more. So, we have to have maybe a little diversity, that's someone that would stand up and fight against that and say, listen, guys, your pockets are not worth my kid's education. Yeah, I understand that you need to make money, but our kids need to be educated equally. No school should have any different program than the other. All right.
Mr. Malfitano.
Let's see if I can make this thing work. Well, one of the things that I've commented on that I think is strong is the constant robocalls that let me know when my kid is cut a class or something else. That's a very effective system. I'd like to see it expanded to teaching time. How many minutes this month was my kid in his regular teacher's classroom for science, math, social studies, and whatever else? Get the technology, we ought to do it. Not, not sitting in front of watching a movie in the auditorium. Well, the weaknesses, I've highlighted a few. This business about not paying attention to having our board members sit on the Industrial Development Agency. That's the agency that hands out all the tax abatements. Mr. Iannuzzi, Ms. Williams totally failed in their responsibility of leadership of asking any of their colleagues, hey, guys, want to please sit there and watch all the tax abatements go out the door? No, they're too busy worrying about Columbus Day, indigenous people, and whatever else. Another fiasco of monumental. You talk about community engagement. Let's find a way to insult people. Out of 365 days of the year to recognize indigenous people, they pick Columbus Day. I suggested the day after Thanksgiving. It's a day off from school, no name on the holiday. Make it Indigenous Peoples Day. It has something to do with the friendly story of the Pilgrims and the Thanksgiving. Now, what did Ms. Williams say when she got on the board? She wants kids to become social justice warriors. I wonder how our Jewish friends feel about that, with all the social justice warriors running all over the United States right now. That's dangerous stuff. The devil is in the details, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Clayton Fernandez. How will you address the different needs of diverse student groups, including children with special education needs, low-income students, English language learners, those of different ethnicities, and those students who show high potential?
Great question. That, I think, if I remember correctly, we had all of those issues in New Rochelle growing, and they grow exponentially as the population grows. And I would say that one of the things that I found very helpful dealing with some of those issues was taking the margins off, mixing those students together when you could, not necessarily drawing those lines and making those differences so starkly, but I've seen troublemakers in the group thrive better when they're in the group with those students that are maybe the top of the class in STEM or in reading. They inspire the better parts of us. Competition in the classroom does start, as long as it's warmly and engaging. I think it just needs to be something that isn't completely separated, but dealt with. There's a time to put that hat on and pull the students out and let them get the extra resources. But if you're really going to see a class thrive, try to keep it all together and then separate out and work on the challenges in smaller groups.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Well, it's the purview of the superintendent to for the daily operations of the school district. So I would ask for, and what we have asked for, attendance data, suspension data, enrollment data, graduation data, and also data about student achievement, academic student achievement, and looking at those data points and determining if we are adequately budgeted to address the needs of our students.
Thank you. Mr. Iannuzzi?
This is a great question, and I wish I had a magic wand to solve it because there's so many different needs from different parts of our community. I think having strong interventions for kids, all kids, is number one what we need a lot of. Use of our family community engagement division to really seeing what our families need and what different activities or programs we can offer them. We have our Deep Dive Saturday and Summer Stars program, which is free programs where kids can get academic enrichment and recreational activities on the weekends and during the summer for free. We also need to look at what's engaging these students, finding their passions and expanding opportunities for them. I just want to highlight New Rochelle High School, for example. This past year, we have a girls flag football team. We have a boys volleyball team. We expanded our New Rochelle High School soccer team to include 4 different teams, and when there used to be 2, serving 90 more kids in that department, in that program. And really just giving kids a chance. Finding out what ways we can help improve their lives and giving them these opportunities.
Thank you. Mr. Sidoti? Sure. Oh, that's okay. How will you address the different needs of diverse student groups, including children with special education needs, low-income students, English language learners, those of different ethnicities, and those students who show high potential?
Yes, and to actually echo what Ms. Williams said is the stats. I love sports, I love stats, I love analytics, and see what the stats are of those special need, those programs, those necessities of low income and diverse students, and see where they can be helped with. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but everybody says with programs, well, with programs, we obviously need finances. I mean, it's sad to say, but that's kind of how it works. And with the poor management, I wouldn't necessarily say 100% on the school board at all, but on the city side, allowing this IDA and these lovely programs that go for 20 to 30 years on these beautiful buildings, it hinders what we could do. And I can't keep asking a taxpayer, a resident, someone that leases an apartment. I mean, God, you see some of the new rents that are available in these buildings, they're thousands of dollars for a one-bedroom apartment. So I can't keep asking to put the strain on the residents. But better management on the businesses that are built here and have them work with our school district and understand we need things. Their math is like we do so many apartments, there's 32 and a half kids. I don't know how we have a half child in that type of math, but that's the way they do it to be able to get their budgeting. So you need someone on the board to understand the finances and go after them and have courage to go against them. Was that it?
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano?
All right, I'll give it a shot. Well, that's a very complex question with a lot of moving parts. Not to beg it off, but this is where the superintendent that we hire doesn't know his stuff. As a board member, we set the priority. This is what we want. This is what we're trying to achieve. Some of what's been talked about here is helpful. I think, as I mentioned before, the budget, as it's presented now, supposedly remedies the compliance issues with special ed by hiring more staff. That's good. For our English as a second language group and everybody else, well, of course, we need the staff to help them. One of the folks here mentioned about data. I'd like to know a few things. The growth in the number of special ed students, is that because we haven't tested our kids, or are these new kids coming into the district from someplace else? I'd also like to know the number of parents that are pulling their kids out of our district. You're talking about the high-end stuff, about classes. What about exit interviews? What about you being in touch with parents? Why did you pull your kid out? Why does your kid not go to our school? These are important things that we as a board need to know. I've heard from some folks that we've watered down our AP classes and other things, and I don't know if that's the case, but we need to look into these concerns. The largest concern I have, and I'll just toss this one out as a thought, one of the biggest populations we have is our Hispanic community, and many of them come here undocumented or aren't citizens. Why can't they vote? That raises a lot of questions, doesn't it? Should somebody who's here in our district, with kids in our schools, maybe paying taxes, be allowed to vote if they're not a citizen in our school board election? We want to talk about it.
Thank you. Ms. Desim?
So I hear all of these categories, and I'm like, this is our business. This is all of our kids. This is our school system that we're talking about. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we're paying attention to all of the groups and have accurate data, of course, on all of these groups, but the diverse groups. We talk about diversity all the time. It's in our mission statement. Do we do diversity? Not really. We just talk about it. We pay lip service to it. And I can tell you that because you don't have a lot of teachers that represent your student body. You have kids that are feeling not a part of the school. If you are properly handling it, all kids would have access to all the programs, as I talked about. So as that part of my top part of my platform, that's one way of dealing with it. The high potential kids, I think we do a great job at a lot of that and keeping that. The AP classes, look, you can go to school here for another 2 years and not take all the AP classes that we offer, and science research, and we hear about that all the time, robotics. But do we ever hear about night school? Do we ever hear about summer school? Who are those kids in there? Who are we putting in there to direct those kids to make sure that they have success? Those are some things that I think we need to look at. Special education, again, some kids have an abundance of support, and other kids, we have to fight, even if they're on the spectrum, for them to get help. It's not consistent. So we need to make sure that we understand our processes, make the processes work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is our last question of the night before closing remarks, right out of today's headlines. What is your opinion of the impending change in transportation schedules and start and end times of our elementary schools to share buses amongst elementary schools as a cost-saving measure? Do you feel there should have been more community input? Yes, no, Ms. Williams first, yes.
The superintendent has been working with committee of administrators and the Fuse Union for a few months on the plan. And from what I understand, they were working on the plan, but someone leaked the information prematurely. So I think that was one of the problems. But now, knowing what we know now, definitely we need to make sure that part of the plan, and I'm not saying that it wasn't part of the plan in the first place, that we also involve parents and families, because parents and families are the ones who are impacted by the change in the schedule. And we are hearing, getting emails from parents asking us questions about that. We should be getting more information in the next 2 weeks from our superintendent. But definitely, if you have a question, send emails, speak to board members, and send emails to the superintendent and to the board, because it's important that if we're going to have a change in schedule of this magnitude, that our voices, the community voices, be heard.
Mr. Iannuzzi?
I have to echo a lot of what Ms. Williams said. until I get the final plan, all I heard is that some schools will be 8 a.m., some will be 8:40. Until the final plan is released with every single detail, then I will have an opinion on it. But the opinion that there should be, or there should have been, or there should still be more parental and family engagement into this process. Yes, looking back on it now, it should have been from the whole time. Now, I don't know what the initial plan was rolling this out, but moving forward, there needs to be community input and family and parent engagement.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yeah, this is a big hot topic. I personally would like to see every school district, every school have an invitation to their parents that they could come and even throw a suggestion in a box. They don't have to, have time to speak, but say, hey, I don't listen, I don't like it. Do you like it? Yes or no? And see what the people have to say, because they're definitely impacted the most. My understanding is going to be two groups, group one and group two, and that will decide what times you're going to go and be released from school. Definitely need some planning for the families to adapt to that. I don't know how it's going to affect the kids that go for early meal plan and for breakfast. That's like a big concern of mine, because obviously they count on that. And again, you never leave a child behind, right? They're our number one priority. So, my number one thought process is, better involve the parents. Let even a box should say yes or no. And if the parents don't come, then they don't have a right to complain. But right now, you go on any of those social media platforms, this is like the biggest topic through mom pages. And there is a lot of cussing about the school board and the superintendent. And then there's some support of, it takes time for the decision making, but the people are mad. And me personally, I'll be happy to be a voice for them, to listen and bring their concerns up to the board. As a parent, you got to give us more time for it. You got to give us time to rearrange our lives. Most of parents, if you're not a single parent like my mother was, that I was on a school bus, you juggle between a mother, father, a grandmother, a cousin to go pick up a child. And we have to be able to organize that to be fair to us. So that's it. That's how I feel, guys.
Mr. Malfitano?
Of course, it's ridiculous. And what Ms. Williams just said highlights the need a change. She says the details were released prematurely. In other words, it's going to be hidden from you, and it's it leaked out. But now I'm quoting from the superintendent's message today. He says the plan is in the plan is in the final stages of actualization, contrary to what Mr. Iannuzzi says. But please note that it is not budget dependent. Then at the end he says, once the school district finalizes the plan, we will formally announce which of our schools are in group 1 and 2 and the formal start times, and initiate an extensive information and advertise. You don't count. You're not part of the equation. This is something that needs a year's worth of consideration. Parents have babysitters. Parents have daycare. The kids at Jefferson walk over to the Y. Are they going to take them at that time? This is half-baked. And Mr. Iannuzzi and Ms. Williams were sitting on his board every meeting I went to for months, and nobody mentioned a thing. And now that the cat's out of the bag, elect me again, elect me again. I believe in community engagement. Come on, guys. Let's get real here. Let's get real. We're talking about other stuff. We got agendas. We got things to worry about. Parents? Yeah. Kids? No, you're not the real priority. I hate to say it that way, but the facts speak for themselves. Please come out, folks. We got to have a change around this place.
Ms. DeSeem?
This is a travesty. This is nothing new. It's one of the reasons why I had, not just because of today, but this is just an example of what happens in our district. It's that I had a difficult time saying something constructive about the Board of Ed. Other than, I do think that, we always manage to still have a great school system. I agree. I love New Rochelle's school system. So in spite of the Board of Ed, listen, transportation is something that has been an issue forever. The idea that we get a letter today telling us that it's happening and it's going to save us $2.5 million. How did you calculate that $2.5 million? We don't even have that information. The budget has been presented, and a lot of people saying they didn't hear it. I heard a mention of this when they presented to PTAC, but it didn't seem like this was something that they were going to do right away. We need to think of a whole lot of options. We bus a lot of different students to different schools. We need to understand, is this really a requirement? Can we stop doing that? Figure out if there's savings there? We see empty buses being bused with kids. How do we do a better job at combining the buses? There are so many possible solutions. The other thing is, I am upset that we are even in this position of a 3.95% tax levy, 2% above what we normally have. Why? We just had a windfall of COVID money. We said, don't spend it if you can't keep these funds long term. They did it. Now we're struggling, and we got to save by, unfortunately, inconveniencing everyone. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez.
This is definitely a hot topic. I think adaptability is something that starts with the top and moves all the way through the community to be part of that conversation. I think there's probably some reasoning behind some of these talking points of the schedule. I don't necessarily say that we have to like it or grab onto it or absolutely hate it, but I do think we should examine it. I think we need to really understand the full story before we get really angry and assess, the impact. And what other options do we have? And what do we need to put that out. I think the board probably needs, the support to at least trust the process. I'm not saying accept it, but I do think we should be in that mind space to hear all of the reasons behind it. Because busing is nothing, these changes, we're not special. All of the communities around, the growing communities are all having these issues. So how do we address them? We really have a conversation and look at all of the issues before we go to a heavy judge.
All right, thank you. So we will, that's the end of our questions, and we're going to begin our closing remarks. I just want to remind you, you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks, and we will start with you, Mr. Iannuzzi.
First, I just want to thank PTAC for putting this together. Every year I get a chance to watch or either participate, and I really appreciate what you're doing, the service you're doing for our community. I also want to thank all of you who came out on this Monday night, so I know you could be at home watching the Knicks right now, which I wish I was. But if you don't know me, I am a history buff, and so I love reading history. I love different quotes, and my quote for today for you guys: are our schools better off now than they were 5 years ago? Now, in my opinion, yes. When I started 5 years ago, we were a ship that was sinking. We had so many issues, revolving doors of superintendents, issue upon issue upon issue. And I believe that my being on the board with several of my colleagues have helped turn that around for the better. Now, you might not say we're not the greatest. I'm not going to say we're the greatest. We have so much work we still need to do to improve our district. But as of right now, we are as stable as we were. We used to go through crisis after crisis after crisis. But now, work is actually getting done. We passed a 5-year strategic roadmap. Our graduation rate has increased by 5% since the 5 years I've been on the board. Proper governance is back where and how it's supposed to be. We've hired Jonathan Raymond, we hired Dr. Corey Reynolds, and our full administration is full right now with administrators. Our principals are doing amazing. Like Mr. Sidoti said, we have Mr. Hildebrand, we have Mr. Gallen, we have Mr. Mealy, we have so many principals that are doing amazing work in our school right now. My tenure, my experience is now as valuable as ever, and I hope you will support me in continuing on this board. If we're elected, there are several things I've mentioned before that I will focus on. Continuing the stability that we have, looking for different ways to engage our students now more than ever, get them wanting to be excited to go to school, looking for more family engagement activities, continuing what we've done with our Saturday deep dives, our Summer Stars program, and also furthering our Green Schools initiative. We need to see different areas of how we can improve and do it, and I hope I have your support for 5 more years on this Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sidoti?
Well, first, again, thank you very much for holding this forum. Thank you for the guys up here on stage, guys and gals. You know, you took some time out of your lives. You obviously care enough to come here and talk about it, so thank you for participating. I will not idly sit by while our city decides to give gracious pilot programs and abatements through the IDA that limits the funding that is rightfully deserved to our school districts and children, as this has been done in the past, which puts the strain on the residents of New Rochelle. I will advocate to have a board member sit at the IDA meetings to understand what is being given away. This election is important to our city schools and will set the direction for years to come. I will make sure that our municipalities, police, and fire work together with our schools so our students could stay safe, protected while they're not in our hands. I will work hand in hand with the schools to have drop-off and pick-up congestion issues remediated as best as we can. As a board member, I will work with my colleagues to improve what is good already and to strive to be the best we could for our students and our school district. Vote Philip Sidoti, May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malfitano?
Yes, and thank you again for running this forum. I hope some people are paying attention and we get some people to come out and vote. There's been no leadership in trying to change the dates of school board elections. I don't think that's anything these folks are interested in. We could have it in November, like the mayor, like the governor moved local elections to increase participation. Mr. Williams has failed in his leadership and does not deserve another term. His failure to have anybody sitting on the IDA for years is just a highlight of that failure. Meanwhile, other craziness going on in the district. Under his leadership, we've seen racial animus and separation become the target of the day. If I was on the school board, I would have noticed that our school is creating a class segregating people on the basis of race. He doesn't think it's important. I emailed him about it, no response. Keep him on the board. You'll get more of it. How about we have a class next year only for Catholics? Jews need not apply. Look, we don't need division in our country. We need unity. These folks are about segregation, unity, and group warfare. As I said, Ms. Williams, when she was elevated to the board in her speech 5 years ago, I hope our school district teaches our children to become, quote, social justice warriors. Well, be careful in the details. The brown shirts and black shirts of Mussolini and Hitler, they were social justice warriors too, weren't they? Be careful what you wish for, ladies and gentlemen. It can get very ugly around here. Do we want to separate our district like these guys have been doing, either blindly or intentionally? The insanity that they went through with the Columbus Day fiasco, making indigenous peoples with Columbus Day. You should have heard the hatred espoused at the board that night. Ugly stuff. We don't need that. Let's compromise. You talk about getting together. I offered a conciliatory suggestion. Yes, recognize indigenous people the Friday after Thanksgiving. It doesn't offend anybody. But no, Miss Williams and Miss Iannuzzi, they want to make a political statement. That's not what we need on our board. If they want to run for Congress, go ahead and run for Congress. But our school board deserves better than that. We need somebody who actually thinks about the whole district and not somebody's woke political agenda. And that's who they are. Oh, can I work with them? Yes. From a position of strength, we can work together. But right now, it's just a amen chorus up there, and our district is suffering immensely because of it. Thank you.
Ms. DeSeem?
Thank you all for attending, and it was an honor and my pleasure to be here. I'm usually out there in the audience, and I have decided to take, instead of being the public, which I think is the most important role, because we're here to represent you and your children, our children, and I have decided to see what I can do from the inside. I am a strong believer in education. I think it is the greatest leveler of the playing field. And when we educate, properly educate our children, ourselves, all of our standards are raised. So I'm not in it for the rhetoric. I'm not in it for the photo ops. The rhetoric hurts my ears. It hurts my heart, and it hurts my guts. Because it means that we're going to keep doing the same old, same old. You heard a lot of rhetoric tonight. It sounds lovely. But it's the same thing that we've been doing, and we're not getting any better, and it means that we continue to not educate all of our kids. It's unacceptable because we have a great school system with so much to offer. We should be the shining star example for all school districts nationwide. I believe that, and I believe that we can be that. It hasn't been a great 5 years. We hired Jonathan Raymond, who was not an educator, in the middle of a pandemic, who hadn't been in education for 8 years. He came in here, he spent all of the money that he wanted to. He hired a assistant person from Sacramento. In less than a year, she was making $80,000. This is just his secretary assistant. And the board approved this. We hired, or we rented out from Monroe for the Huguenot Academy for 60 kids. We paid them $24,000 a month, and we couldn't operate, and we couldn't occupy the building for a year. Everybody approved this. How is this okay? We've been saying that we want a IDA person. Well, we had an IDA representative there, but they didn't speak up, even though we don't have any now. But we had them for the bulk of all of the construction. They didn't speak up and say, no, we need this money. Because guess what? That's part of the reason why our tax levy is now doubled. 3.95% comes out of the state, so explained to me by Dr. Reynolds and our treasurer, our business superintendent, that they're looking at the buildings that are being built, the brick and mortar. Thank you.
Mrs. Clayton Fernandez?
For me, an opportunity to work with our children is a privilege. It's not just a political aspiration. It's a privilege because they deserve our best. I'll be honest, I'm a little taken back by the tone. I think that education is the most important element that we can offer as a community to our kids. Frederick Douglass had it right. He said, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. If we're going to really commit to this experience, because it's more than just a job or it's an experience, we must always, number one, be civil to each other. Number two, we can get a lot done. We can have a difference of opinion, but I do think that having goals and heavy conversation and doing the hard work of assessment, I was able to experience that firsthand working with our kids in our community for 6 years. It does not come easy. It comes with really having foot soldiers out there, having students talk, parents talk. But all of it starts with how we communicate as a team. I do believe that we have a very smart group of people up here on the board. I do believe we have a very strong community of amazing parents. They know more than we do. But if we're really going to get the job done, no shortcuts. We're going to have to really all be at the table and care about the end result and have true markers and make the hard decisions, the ones that make everybody uncomfortable. This is not about friendships. This is really about people really doing their part and making everyone accountable.
And finally, Ms. Williams.
Thank you very much. Please reelect me to the New Rochelle School Board because we need continuity on our board. You remember 5 years ago, it was very tumultuous, and we've heard some rhetoric this evening that is reminiscent of what it was like. And in my opinion, never again. We can never have it again. Being on the school board is a labor of love. Yes, I am a social justice warrior, and I want the best for everyone. I want people to be seen, and I want people to be heard, and I'm going to use my platform and my influence to make sure that that happens. Since I've been on the board, we've had more civility, we've had more courtesy on this board than we had when I first joined. It was very difficult when I first joined because many people did not agree with me, but I was steadfast. And at this point, I do feel that I am heard by the community and by my colleagues on the board. And I also applaud my board president, William Iannuzzi, because he is a presence that brings people together, and that's what we need, because we cannot have what we had 5 years ago. We've seen a 5% increase in the graduation rate. We've seen increase in proper governance, civility, and also asking the questions. We get the information about student achievement and data, and it's unacceptable. But we're at a point right now that we can do something about it. At first, we were putting out fires. Now, we're stable enough that we will be able to address issues as far as with transportation and also with special education. So please reelect me to the school board, and I will continue to work with my colleagues on the board, the superintendent, and the community for a better New Rochelle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for signing up for a thankless but extremely important role in the lives of all of our children and, of course, the community. Thank you, audience, and remember to vote on May 21st, and special thank you to my timekeeper, and thank you all for coming tonight.